o'clock, we're hearing from family members of an Oklahoma police chief who was murdered by one of his officers at a local hotel. The man who killed his boss sentenced this afternoon to life in prison.
Criminals have always been skilled at creating complex stories to deceive the police and avoid getting caught. These stories are carefully designed to divert attention, create confusion, and cast doubt on the facts. Understanding their tactics can help law enforcement navigate through the lies and apprehend the wrongdoers. The first step for criminals is to come up with a believable narrative that hides their involvement in the crime. They'd often invent detailed accounts, complete with timelines, alibis, and fake witnesses, to make their stories seem credible. By doing so, they hope to create doubt and lead investigators away from the truth. In this tale of mystery and remorse, the answers lie within the haze of a fateful night, waiting to be unraveled. Will Detective Nealy uncover the truth?
I had no idea what I was being charged with.
Yeah, you're in charge of second-degree murder, and you're fixing to be booked in the Escambia County Jail with no bond. And we've already notified your wife.
Or will the darkness of his past consume him forever? Another common strategy is emotional manipulation. Criminals may pretend to be distressed, scared, or remorseful during interrogations or court appearances to gain sympathy from law enforcement or jurors. Shedding tears or showing remorse can make them appear innocent or troubled, which could influence opinions in their favor. In some cases, criminals will try to take advantage of the police's focus on certain aspects of the investigation. They might plant false evidence or misleading clues, leading investigators astray and diverting attention from their real involvement. This tactic can be particularly effective if the police become fixated on a specific suspect or theory. Criminals often provide rehearsed answers and stick to them consistently during interrogations. This consistency is meant to make their story appear more believable, as if they are providing a truthful and unwavering account of events. Skilled criminals also understand the importance of remaining composed during questioning. They may try to hide their nervousness or guilt by appearing calm and collected, making it hard for the police to detect signs of deception. In some cases, criminals may even use gaslighting, trying to make the police question their own investigations or doubt the reliability of evidence. By sowing seeds of doubt, they hope to undermine the case against them. But what if an evil cop sits in the place of that criminal and tries to play with the officers? Just take this case for example.
Sir Michael Nealy, a violent night fueled by alcohol ended in Nealy beating Miller to death.
Detective Michael Nealy and his chief, Johnny Miller, traveled away for a conference. During their trip, they decided to go out for a few drinks one night. But as the night wore on, the drinks took their toll on Mike. When he woke up the next morning, he found himself in police custody, taken to a familiar room where he had interrogated suspects countless times before. However, this time, the tables were turned, and someone else was asking the questions. The officer in charge questioned Mike about their journey, asking if they had flown from Tulsa to Oklahoma City and then on to Pensacola. Mike kept his answers brief, not feeling his best after the heavy drinking the night before. He mentioned they took a direct flight to Pensacola and checked into their hotel. The interrogator probed further, inquiring about any problems during their dinner. Mike replied that everything seemed normal, just a regular dinner with a couple of beers. When asked about the timing, Mike said it was pretty early and not yet dark outside. He mentioned they watched a football game and had a few more beers, but the reality was much darker. It was later discovered that both men had incredibly high blood alcohol levels, around or above 0.3. For reference, 0.4 is considered a fatal dose, and 0.3 can lead to alcohol poisoning, resulting in unconsciousness or even death. Their extreme intoxication likely led to the horrifying events that unfolded that night. As the questions continued, the officer asked if anyone from the hotel staff had approached them due to noise, but Mike couldn't recall such an encounter. He struggled to remember anything beyond the football game. Then a shocking revelation emerged. The officer revealed that Johnny Miller, Mike's own police chief, had passed away. Mike was stunned, realizing that his drunken state had rendered him oblivious to the tragic events that took place. In his inebriated condition, Mike had little recollection of what happened that night, and he was at a loss for words upon learning about his chief's death. Mike knew how dire his situation was, so he decided to exercise his right to remain silent when the police questioned him.
Yes, sir.
I guess I probably don't have anything else to say then.
Despite his silence, the detectives were experienced and skillful, ready to use all their years of knowledge to solve the case. The detectives informed Michael that he was charged with second-degree murder, and he was to be booked in Escambia County Jail with no chance of getting out on bond. They had already notified his wife and the victim's family. The gravity of the situation started to sink in for Michael, and he was feeling overwhelmed. The detectives offered to answer any questions he had, and even though Michael had countless inquiries, he couldn't help but feel a bit intimidated. However, the detectives assured him that if he wanted to talk, they would be there to listen. They were eager to find out what had happened, and they emphasized that it was up to him to decide whether to cooperate. Feeling lost and shocked, Michael expressed his desire to know what had occurred, as he had no memory of the events leading to the charges against him. He was willing to continue the conversation, hoping it would shed some light on the situation. The detectives used two techniques to keep Michael engaged.
I don't have any memory of any of this shit, and I'm shocked.
You want to continue talking to us?
First, they reminded him of the serious consequences he was facing, which made him realize the gravity of the matter. Then they offered to help him unravel the events of that fateful night, understanding that he had no recollection due to being blackout drunk. Now, imagine yourself in Michael's shoes, waking up in a jail cell with the dreadful news that you're accused of killing your boss while being inebriated and having no memory of it. Naturally, you would be desperate to piece together the events leading to this tragedy. Michael found himself joining the detectives in his own investigation, as he desperately wanted to uncover the truth and perhaps find a way out of this nightmare. The officer wanted to know the last thing someone could remember. "Do you recall what happened before?" he asked in a friendly manner. "Perhaps you were watching football. Oh, and were you drinking something, maybe vodka?" The incident in question occurred late in the evening. The officer explained that there had been a call around 6 p.m., reporting some noise from a room where a few guys were staying. They seemed to be having a good time, laughing, and maybe arguing a little. Another noise complaint followed at around 9:50 p.m. This time, when someone tried to check the room, there was no response. They'd heard some grumbling and knocking, but the door remained shut. Eventually, they used a card to open the door, and inside, they found a person on the ground between the bed and the wall. It turned out that Mike was sitting on top of him, and they had been involved in some sort of altercation. Another witness stated that they heard someone urging Mike to stop, but then everything went quiet. When questioned, Mike claimed to have no memory of the incident. He said he never had any ill feelings towards the other person involved, Miller, at any point before this happened. Yet he showed no signs of regret or guilt. Instead, he appeared confused, solely focused on his own concerns. The officers tried to engage with him, sharing more details about Miller's body, and desperately attempting to jog his memory about the events that had unfolded. But Mike remained in a state of disbelief, seemingly unable to recall anything. Amidst the questioning, there came a moment of music, perhaps a pause to let everything sink in. The officers asked if there was anything that might have triggered his actions, but Mike seemed to draw a blank. He replied with uncertainty, insisting that there was nothing, absolutely nothing. The officers continued their efforts to understand what had led to this tragic incident, but Mike's responses remained vague and bewildered. They inquired if he had any questions for them, offering to take him across the street, possibly for his booking into jail. Mike acknowledged the situation, knowing he was headed to jail, and understood that his life was about to change forever. Despite the gravity of the situation, Mike strangely accepted his fate without much resistance. He simply sat there, as if coming to terms with the fact that his life would never be the same again. In the end, he was sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder. And so, Michael Nealy's journey into the world of imprisonment began, and he took it surprisingly well, given the circumstances. He embraced the reality that his life had taken a dark turn, and he was prepared to face the consequences of his actions.